JT Wistersill, Locked on Utes. The rhetoric very early on with Utah joining the Big 12, and even because I'll say it, crazy Uncle Kyle Whittingham, he says some things sometimes that are crazy, but so does Mike Gundy, right? I think they fall in a similar category. But what a lot of people got, the flavor they got, is that Utah doesn't want to be in the Big 12. They're not happy about being in this conference. I want to ask you a question that's twofold, two-pronged here. Why? Number one, why did people get that sense? And number two, is it true?
I think people get the sense because a lot of fans online were like, oh, we've won back-to-back Pac-12 championships, or, oh, we're at the forefront of college football in terms of just those recent conference championships. I guess that's why. I just think there were a lot of people there who were unrealistic about what Utah was. And I'm someone who's high on Utah. I do think they're one of the better brands currently in college football from what they do on the field. They're not a brand as like a Miami or things of that nature. Utah was never going to get into the Big Ten or the SEC this go around. And especially the Big Ten, I think, is the one. It's like, well, the best Pac-12 teams are going over there. So it feels like since we're not with them, we had to go somewhere else. Like, I want to be there. So I think some of the fans were disappointed in that aspect, I guess. And in a sense, I can get that in some ways, right? Just because obviously you're talking about which two conferences are in the strongest position to be at the continued forefront of college football. It is the Big Ten, the SEC at the moment. But
I hate to interject too, but again, I get that there's a Pac-12 allegiance. There's part of that Pac-12 is the conference that took the chance on Utah to make them a power conference school, right? So that going away is not good. They want to go to the Big Ten, and there were murmurs of Utah to the Big Ten. When that doesn't happen, I can see the distaste. And I do still think there are some Utah fans that feel that way going into the Big 12. Yeah. I guarantee you, with the way that all of us media members are lauding the football program as the cream of the crop before they even step on the gridiron here, that doesn't help. That also inflates the head. Do you still think that mentality is there for a lot of fans then?
I think it is. I think a lot of fans feel that way as well. But I still think the majority of fans, at least from what I can gather, realize that, hey, this worked out really well for Utah to still be in a Power 4 conference. Like, if Utah doesn't have their recent success, who's to say Utah's not Oregon State and Washington State right now, independent and sitting out and, having to have most of their games on the CW. No offense to the CW. I just say that's the reality of what the situation is coming up about to be for those schools. So, yeah, I think Utah should consider themselves lucky to be in the Big 12 because it's an opportunity for them to continue to elevate their brand. A lot of the brands in the Big 12 right now aren't as strong as maybe they've always been. We mentioned a school like a Baylor, right? Arizona State is a Pac-12 school coming over. They would qualify under the pretenders, right? They're not where they want to be yet. Houston's not up to par yet. Obviously, Kansas is doing things they've never done, but in place of that, you have some of these other schools that aren't doing where they would want to be necessarily at this moment. But I think all of those brands have the opportunity to get up and get stronger. Just like how the Pac-12 just wrapped up a season in which it was one of the strongest conferences in college football, I think the Big 12 has a chance to be that very soon too. When you look at the opportunity that presents itself with all these new and incoming talents, Brett Yormark's doing a good job of pushing the boundaries of the future of the sport in general. So I feel like this is a really strong and growing conference too. And I'll say this, I think Utah, number one, you get through a Power 4 schedule, and if you're one of the better programs in that conference, like I expect Utah to be, you're putting yourself in strong college football playoff condition. And that's what this is all about, right? Success in the postseason to continue to try to just be the best, because that's what we love about college football, right? Everyone hypothetically has a chance to win it all. Now, obviously, even Utah is going to be really hard-pressed to win a national championship anytime soon, but the fact that they have a chance to make playoff runs in the new format, that's exciting. And that doesn't happen unless you're in the Big 12. And I'll also say this really quick about basketball. I think Utah basketball, even though it might not be great this coming year, I think eventually being in
everybody run and hide
will force them to elevate.
We're talking about Utah basketball. Hide your children.
Yeah.
Don't tell them about it.
But no, I feel like the football program will continue to get elevated, and the basketball program, even though they're going to get the crap beat out of them.
No,
maybe
stop it. We don't have to talk about basketball yet. You can leave that one off. Utah basketball can sit on the back burner. We were having a good, happy, fun time talking about football here. JT, before we get to the portal and basketball and what's left of the Utah program, this idea that Utah could have gone to the Big Ten was one that I subscribed to. I thought originally that would be the case. I thought Utah would be a Big Ten team. Had that happened, I don't think Utah has any shot at the college football playoff. I think it gets a lot tougher in that realm, especially if you get, hey, now we play Oregon, Washington, Penn State, Michigan. If that's your gauntlet, things get real tough real fast. Does it feel like in the end, Utah got put in the right spot to not only compete, but also be in a place of comfort?
I think you're right. I think they did. I think that's a great point you make, because if those teams are on your schedule, Utah has gotten up to another level, but they're not at the level yet where I'm like, oh yeah, I already mentioned the big road games they've lost to. That's why we think they can have success in the Big 12, is they'll avoid a lot of those teams. Utah is really good. It takes a special team to be able to go into Ohio State and win. And even that, that's almost an unrealistic one, right? But even winning when Ohio State comes to you, beating Oregon year in and year out, right? Oregon's beaten Utah the last 2 years. Utah can beat Oregon. They beat them in the Pac-12 championship not too long ago, but beating them year in and year out, right? Washington, UCLA is about to go through it with everything that's happened there. They're someone where I could see that program kind of like how Nebraska, when they entered the Big Ten, right? Like they're just nowhere what they used to be. And UCLA hasn't been what it's been for a long time now. But I think that is a great point you make, Drake. And Utah is set up for success in the Big 12, even post-Cam Rising, right? Like maybe they'll fall off a year, but they could come right back. And who knows, maybe they're a team that year in and year out can be a contender in the Big 12. I think the potential is there depending on how they navigate the transfer portal. But in the Big 10, it would literally just be like, man, we're a really good team. And maybe that's where I go back to talking about Maryland, right? Because you ain't beating the top dogs. You're not going to beat the Michigans and some of those other schools, the USC and all of those things. So that's where I think it could get messy for Utah. And if they want to succeed right now, which obviously they do, the best place for them to be this fall is the Big 12.
Utah basketball is on fire, and the football team also lost a couple transfers. What's going on there in Salt Lake City? This is Locked On Big 12, Locked On Utes crossover. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, FanDuel is where I go to say Mystic Dan is going to win the Kentucky Derby. And guess what? He does it. And when he does it, my $20 turns into $300. Why did I bet on Mystic Dan? Because he's got a really cool name. So I said, Mystic Dan. His odds are kind of bad, so if he wins, I win a lot of money. And he did. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL as well. And FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. FanDuel.com/lockedon today for a chance at that $150 in free play at FanDuel.com.